Do you check the backgrounds of your friends' parents before you let them go over? Do you check the sex offender registry? If not, then you may want to start, because this story can happen anywhere. And unfortunately, the laws we have to protect our children may not be what they seem to be. Join me while we look at what happens when justice fails. Please note that the content of this recording may contain graphic material, including torture, and explicit language may be used. The opinions are of my own and may be offensive to some listeners. They are my opinions. Everyone has them, and if you do not agree, then ignore them like an adult and move on. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Hey Ravens, welcome to the Ravens Knock. I'm your host, Amy. I want to thank you guys for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and also referring your friends. If you're not a premium member, you can do so for $7 a month, which is like a cup of coffee. It does help the show out, as podcasting is not free. And you get ad-free content, bonus episodes that no one else gets. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Tiffany was 13 and she was excited. She was inviting a bunch of friends over for a weekend. They were planning on hitting the mall and going to a place called the Main Event, which is kind of like a teenager/adult Chuck E. Cheese. It's a place with food and all kinds of games. Some of the girls couldn't come, but two of the kids were game. They were 16-year-old Brittany and 14-year-old Ivy. Now, those weren't the only kids, as Tiffany had siblings. Riley, who was 17, and Michael, who was 15. Jesse McFadden, Tiffany's stepfather, picked up the girls, and the weekend began. Do you remember the excitement when you were having a sleepover? I bet they were stoked. Both Brittany and Ivy's parents received text messages saying that they would be going to Tiffany's family's farm, and service was spotty at best there. Everything was as it normally was, but then worry began to set in. Some reports say that one parent reported her daughter missing, as she was supposed to be home Sunday at 5, and she wasn't, and the mother couldn't get a hold of her. And another said a parent noticed something was wrong when none of the kids were on the bus Monday for school. Either way, on Monday, the police showed up at Tiffany's home, but it wasn't because of the parents. It was because Jesse had failed to appear in court. He had been charged with one count of sexting a minor and one count of child pornography. He was looking at up to 10 years for the sexting charge and up to 20 years for the porn charge if he was convicted. He received these charges 3 years ago when he was incarcerated for raping a teenage girl. Yeah, he had gotten a hold of his cell phone and committed another crime while he was in prison. The parents of the two kids that had stayed over had no idea of his past or that he was a registered sex offender. Back in 2003, he had taken a 15-year-old girl, tied her up, held her at knife point, and raped her. He was serving a 20-year sentence for that. While in prison, he had at least 10 misconduct offenses that included consensual sex with other inmates and a positive drug screen before he got the charges with the cell phone. Despite all of that, he got out early, only after serving 85% of his sentence. He did register as a sex offender, and he was out on bond for new charges. A cellmate of Jesse's would later say that he played down the rape charge. He was a very good manipulator. He also said that if he found out that you were a weaker person, you would be assaulted. He watched Jesse stalk a female staff member, and he got in trouble when they got a job on the inside at a call center for making a lady feel uncomfortable. Now, he got transferred out of that prison, but when he found out that Jesse was released, he called the police and warned them that this guy would reoffend. The police arrived to the home to find the front door ajar. The house was quiet. No one was inside the house, and the house was filthy. There was drug candy, drug paraphernalia, syringes, restraints, sex toys, etc., just lying about. I mean, it fit the bill for him, but wasn't there children who lived there too? Where were they? They went outside to search, and it wasn't long before they were found. One by one, they found Riley, Ivy, Brittany, Holly, Michael, and finally, Jesse, all of whom had been shot in the head with a 9mm. The bodies had been moved, and it appeared like the scene had been staged. Ivy, Brittany, and Riley were found near a creek, all shot once. Michael and Tiffany had been shot twice. Holly had been shot 3 times, and then he had shot himself. All 4 of them were found about a quarter-mile south of the residence. It was later to be found that Ivy and Brittany had also been raped. I am so pissed right now. The rape victim had pleaded with them not to let him out. Why did it take 3 years to charge him? Why let him out, then charge him? Why then let him bond out? Why allow him to stay with children? In Oklahoma, apparently, if you are a sex offender, you are allowed to stay in a home with children if they are your own or if they are stepchildren and they are not a victim of yours. What the? I have questions. What if the kids want friends over? If they cannot, how is that fair to the kids? If they can, who's responsible for those friends if they get violated? Also, stepchildren are not related, so they're more at risk. And lastly, predators tend to escalate and sum up the ante. So, who's to say they don't get desperate and do that to their own child? Who's responsible then? Do you really want to take that risk? I mean, good God, people. Who makes these rules? On the phones, it was found that Jesse had been texting his victim, now 23 years old, telling her that he was doing what he said he was going to do when he got out. He had a good job, making good money, and he was living a good life. It was all on her for continuing to do this. So, no, I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? What I did to you was wrong, and I see that now, and I went and gotten help for that. Instead, you try to make it her fault. This is the piece of shit you let out of prison. This is the parasite you let live in a home with teenage girls, the same type of victims he violated, and this is supposed to be okay. Could someone please tell me how this is okay? How this makes sense, because I'm really struggling here. Can we not chemically castrate offenders? Why can we not do this? Why can we not force a mother on birth control after she's had children taken away and is not willing to do the steps in order to get them back, to prevent her from having more children, and doing the same to the father so he cannot make more children if they are not willing to raise them? Am I the only one who feels this way? Whomever made the decision about allowing sex offenders to live with children, I want you to know, for every child that is violated, murdered, or harmed by that offender, it's on you. It's on every single one of you that voted or signed off on whatever it is that y'all do in order to pass this bullshit. It was also found out that Jesse had told his mother that he was going to commit suicide the day before this occurred. To that mother, may I ask you why you didn't call or inform his wife Holly or anyone else of his intent? Did you do anything to stop this situation? If so, then I sincerely apologize for calling you out. However, if you did not, then you need to be called out. The police was there at the home when the families were there to collect the belongings. They had released the scene. When the families went inside, they were appalled. Inside, computers still remain. The restraints, the sex toys, phones, syringes, everything laid out. Exactly what did they take for evidence? Anything at all? They complained. So they didn't take anything at that point. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation took over due to the complaints, and they resealed the crime scene. I know it was a done deal as he committed suicide, but at least take the electronics. I mean, you could find out who, if anyone, he may have been corresponding with, or you could find other potential predators. Find out what he was really doing. I'm sure the motive was probably, he didn't want to go back to jail. But why take everyone? I can see taking Holly, as in, if I can't have her, no one can, that saying. But why the kids? I know he raped the 2 girls, but if he was going to kill himself, why kill them? They all had their whole lives ahead of them. Those kids did absolutely nothing to deserve what they got. Jesse had been born in Kansas, and he had dropped out of school in the 9th grade. But he got his GED while he was in prison. His first trouble with the law was when he got busted for underage drinking. In 2002, he pled guilty to stealing $80,000 from his grandfather, which was a felony. In 2003, he got charged twice with driving on suspended license. And again, in 2003 is when he was charged with the rape of a minor. And then he was charged with the sexting of a minor and child porn while he was in prison. This man is not someone who is getting better, which takes me back to allowing him to live where he lived. Holly Guess was 35 years old and a very loving and protective mother who worked from home selling life insurance. It's not quite clear on how she met Jesse, but he did move in with her after they had moved to Henrietta in 2021. They got married in 2022. According to Holly's mother, Jesse had lied about his past. Holly's mom said she had no idea until a couple of months ago that when they had interviewed her, that he even had such a dark history. She said she did get red flags as Jesse was a quiet guy and always wanted to know where Holly and the kids were at all times. She stated the last time she saw Holly and the kids was on April 17th when she drove the 2 hours to come down to see her granddaughter sing in the school choir. It was her last concert. She said Riley was 17 years old and was very artistic, and she was very good with the paintbrush. She wanted to be a doctor when she got out of school because she wanted to help people. Michael was the middle child. He was 15 years old and played football, ran track, and ran cross country. When he started playing football, Holly was excited and went all out and got sweatshirts and t-shirts made for everybody. She was that kind of mom. Tiffany was the baby. She was 13. She sang in the school choir. She had tried out for cheerleading. She also ran cross country. She was so funny. She would growl at you when she got mad. Ivy, who was 14, was a great kid and a great student who had a passion and a heart for animals. She was described as a genuine person with a very big heart. Brittany, who was 16, couldn't decide if she wanted to be a veterinarian or a teacher. She would have been great at both, I bet, if she had been given a chance. If only our justice system hadn't failed them. Brittany was also going to be Miss Henrietta, coming up in July for the Miss National pageant in Tulsa. If only. We have got to change the law. We have got to implement harsher punishments. What we have now is too light. It's so obvious as it's not working. How many men do you think would go on doing what they're doing if they knew if they got caught they would forever be chemically castrated? Do you think that would deter them better than what we have now? Do you think that would protect our children better than the laws we have now? Imagine what kind of doctor, vet, teacher, football player we could have had right now. If only justice won. And that wraps up this episode, guys. I know it's another short one, but just because it's short doesn't mean it's any less important. I appreciate you guys listening. If you can, be a premium subscriber. I would appreciate if you supported the show. If you can't at this time, if you can just like, share, subscribe, that helps out a lot. You can also check out my co-host Jamie's page at Southern Soul Tribe. You can check out her channel. And until next time, guys, stay out of rest stops and be safe.